It begins. Make your choice. Earth Online descends upon Blue Star without warning. Every nation picks a starting species to fight for dominance over Blue Star. As long as that species survives into the next patch, the nation earns rewards scaled to how thoroughly that species dominates. So to rise above the rest in this war of 1,000 species, every nation chases peak stats and broken mechanics. But in this new round, I throw out the playbook entirely and pick a fool hopping around with a rock. Because I arrived here through transmigration, and I quickly realized that this world's beliefs are almost entirely rooted in creationism, which means nobody knows that humans evolved from apes. So I decide to use my complete knowledge of evolution theory to show them who the true ruler of nature really is. Right now, freshly arrived through transmigration, I am watching the final moments of the last patch. In that patch, the undisputed rulers of the land were massive beasts. They crushed every living thing through sheer overwhelming force. Then a massive meteorite falls from the sky, and the unstoppable dinosaur dynasty is wiped from existence. As I am still watching, a sound suddenly cuts through the world. Cold, mechanical. At the same moment, a massive sky screen unfolds high above, visible from everywhere. All anyone has to do is look up to see the Earth Online full patch update announcement. The Earth Online Global Civilization Observer Selection officially begins. Observer names will be revealed in 3 minutes. New patch timeline advances to 4,400,000 years ago. Update point 3. The new patch brings massive changes. Species diversity expands dramatically. Full details released with the patch. Update point 4. Reward and punishment systems overhauled. Winners get more. Losers suffer worse. Just a few lines of text, and the entire world goes rigid with tension. What makes it even worse is that this time, they only get 3 minutes. Every previous patch update gave observers time after selection, anywhere from 3 to 10 days to prepare. During that window, every nation would pour everything they had into briefing their observer, analyzing the situation, building a strategy. But this time, the system catches everyone completely off guard. 3 minutes. Not enough time for any kind of briefing, not even enough time to get someone to the research base. Classrooms fall silent all at once. Every pair of eyes locked onto the sky screen, waiting for Dragon Nation's new civilization observer to be named. Finally, the long global roll call ends, and Dragon Nation's entry appears. Dragon Nation Civilization Observer Stellan. And just 1 second later, my photo appears on the sky screen, and the entire classroom explodes. No way. Stellan? Are you serious? Out of everyone in the whole country, it's him? The last observer was already from our school. And now again? What kind of luck does this school have? Luck? Are you kidding? This is Stellan we're talking about, the guy who sleeps through everything. At the same moment, I receive a system notification. You have been selected as Dragon Nation's new civilization observer. Earth Online will now transfer you into the game. All outside contact will be cut off until the patch concludes. At this point, refusing is not an option. Meanwhile, on the other side of the country, in Dragon Nation's capital, the Earth Online Special Research Division is in complete chaos. Everyone in the base stops what they are doing almost simultaneously, staring at the 3-minute countdown, faces drained of color. What is going on? How is it only 3 minutes? There is no preparation window this time. We are finished. What can anyone even do in 3 minutes? Division head Dr. Voss nearly blacks out on the spot. He is one of Dragon Nation's leading figures in both medicine and the special research program. He had everything ready to bring in the new observer using the standard procedure, but the system just cuts the whole process. Left with no other choice, he grits his teeth and gives the order. Dig. Every piece of information on this Stellan, in 3 minutes. Fast. Stellan's full file lands in front of Dr. Voss. The good news is that Stellan comes from a top university, the same school that produced the last observer. The academic environment there is strong enough that even an average student would have some relevant foundation. The bad news is that Stellan is anything but average. He is the most notorious slacker in his class. Sleeping through lectures, spacing out constantly, completely falling apart after getting dumped by his ex, the textbook definition of lovesick. By the time Dr. Voss reaches this part, he just goes numb. He forces out a pained smile and mutters, "What a nightmare start." And the public reaction across Dragon Nation is not much better than the research division. As the Earth Online livestream goes live, viewers across all nations can interact freely. Comments from other countries are already flooding in, nations hyping up their own observers. Some say their representative is a trained zoologist. Others claim theirs is a specialist from a research division, and some do what they always do, tell everyone else to give up now. But the real chaos is in Dragon Nation's own stream, because just minutes after Stellan is selected, classmates from his school start spilling everything. He sleeps in class, he is checked out every single day, and even the Earth Online course could not keep him awake. That revelation sends the entire nation of Dragon Nation into a meltdown. They just survived a natural disaster triggered by the last patch failure. And now the system has made it clear that punishment for losing in this new patch will be even worse. Meaning, if they lose again, what waits for Dragon Nation could be far more devastating than before. Tags like Stellan the Slacker and Dragon Nation draws the worst pick shoot straight to the top of trending. Millions flood the stream, watching this guy on screen glancing around, looking oddly calm and unfazed, and their hearts sink a little more with every second, though not everyone gives up. Some point out that other nations had no preparation time either, so Dragon Nation still has a shot. Others say this land has never run out of comebacks, and until the very last moment, no one can call it completely over. Meanwhile, the system has already pulled me into a special virtual space. Over 100 civilization observers fill the room, each one with their nation's flag hovering above their head. The sky screen broadcast goes live outside, and people around the world can see everything happening in here. And quickly, the observers naturally cluster together. Nations that are closer politically and ideologically gravitate toward each other. A crowd forms quickly around Eagle Nation's observer, followers in tow, the most dominant presence in the room. People start drifting toward my side too, but most of them are from the Middle East, Africa, and smaller nations, clearly outnumbered. Before the patch even officially starts, the global power structure is already being mirrored right here in silence. But what really snaps everyone to attention is not the political posturing. It is the new rule the system announces. As civilization observers, you may intervene in the development of your observed species to a limited degree, altering the course of that species' history and even its evolutionary direction. However, interventions are capped at 3 total, and the scope of each must remain within defined limits. Additional note, when a civilization observer initiates an intervention, they may activate external support. The moment those words land, eyes light up across the room, because in every patch before this one, observers could do little more than watch. No interfering with life or death. But with this new rule in place, the level of player control explodes. Migration routes, physical structure, evolutionary tendencies, all of it can now be influenced within defined limits. For major powers, this means their research teams finally have real leverage. For observers, it means winning is no longer just about luck. There is now a layer of active strategy involved. Inside Dragon Nation's research division, Dr. Voss finally exhales. He immediately calls everyone to attention and orders the team to prepare full data support for whenever Stellan triggers an intervention. But at the same time, I see something most people are missing. This looks like an opportunity, but it is also a much bigger trap. Intervening in species evolution sounds like a simple stat boost, but biological evolution has never been as simple as raw strength or speed. Being strong does not mean surviving the environment. Being large does not mean living longer. Throughout all of history, countless species that looked unbeatable were wiped out by the environment and the food chain without mercy. In other words, if these 3 interventions are used wrong, the species could die out faster than doing nothing at all. So I leave myself just one word: careful. And soon, the patch preview officially begins. The system announcement says the new patch starts at 4,400,000 years ago, but the actual preview begins at the end of the previous patch. Up on the sky screen, a meteorite falls from the heavens, replaying the final collapse of the Cretaceous period for everyone to witness. The apocalypse arrives. The dinosaur dynasty is erased. The continental plates crack and shift. The world slowly pulls itself back together through a long, smoldering aftermath. Tens of millions of years that follow are swept past at high speed on the sky screen. In the Paleocene after the disaster, the survivors are mostly small, highly adaptable mammals. Then further still, the global climate warms, forests spread, and the Eocene lays the foundation for a massive explosion of life. Another 10 million years pass, the planet gradually cools, grasslands begin to spread, and in the Oligocene, mammals hit an explosive boom. Pigs, cattle, sheep, horses, proboscideans, felids, nimravids, canids, whale ancestors, bats, all of them appear. Roughly 43 million years of evolution, and the system treats all of it as nothing more than patch preview filler to rush through, because none of it is part of the actual patch. It is simply telling every observer the age of dinosaurs is over, the age of mammals has fully begun. Then the real patch launches, the Miocene. And when I see that, my expression shifts for the first time. Because if my past life memory is right, the Miocene began 23 million years ago, a critical era lasting over 20 million years, and it is precisely within this epoch that humanity's ancestors will begin their rise. But for most people watching inside and outside the room, they cannot see that far ahead yet. What they see first is the most immediate, the most viscerally powerful creatures on screen. As the global climate cools, vast forests give way to open grasslands, and herbivorous mammals begin to explode in size and number. The first species to silence the entire room is the proboscideans. Dinotherium enters. Body length over 5 meters, weight exceeding 12 tons. Resembling a modern elephant but with a shorter trunk and massive downward curving tusks. Then, Stegodon, Gomphotherium, Platybelodon, and more branches follow one after another. Different species, but they all share one defining trait: big. And after 3 consecutive patches dominated by dinosaurs shaping everyone's worldview, most people's gut reaction is still the same simple logic. Bigger means stronger. Inside Dragon Nation's research division, Dr. Voss immediately has the team flag proboscideans as a priority candidate. Because purely in terms of size and survival stability, they genuinely look like one of the safest bets this patch. Next come the rhinoceroses. Dicerorhinus, black rhino, white rhino, and others appear in succession. Sizable but still a step below proboscideans, and no faster either. Dr. Voss gives a blunt assessment. Backup option at best. Not a realistic contender for the top of the ecosystem. Then, on the grasslands of 18 million years ago, equids appear, evolved from the ancient Merychippus. Their build is already close to the modern horse, with powerful limbs and built for speed. Then the deer family begins its massive explosion. Civatherium, ancient giraffes, prehistoric giraffes, Samotherium and more, countless varieties blanketing the grasslands. They may not have the most extreme physical builds, but they have exactly what it takes to survive the open plains: speed, herd size, and adaptability. If everything shown so far has been pushing the logic of bigger means stronger, then what comes next rips that idea completely apart. Megalodons enters the screen. The saber-tooth cat. Shoulder height around 1.2 meters, max body length exceeding 3 meters, and weight more than double a modern male lion. Long limbs, a densely muscled body, and the most striking feature, 2 curved saber fangs like a pair of curved blades in its jaw. More importantly, the sky screen shows it actually hunting massive proboscideans. Speed, strength, and killing efficiency all maxed out. That single clip sends a shockwave through the crowd, because it means the top ecological slot of the Miocene does not necessarily belong to the biggest herbivores. It could belong to a predator capable of consistently taking down giants. And Megalodons is not just one species. It is an entire family. Metallurus, Paramachairodus, Megantereon, Smilodon, Dinofelis, and more, each one entering with the unmistakable presence of an apex predator. Inside Dragon Nation's research division, Dr. Voss finally looks genuinely serious. In his assessment, the saber-tooth family is likely a better meta pick for this patch than the proboscideans. But the sky screen is clearly not done presenting options. Bears appear next. But the ancestral bear at this point stands only around 1 meter tall, mostly living in forest environments, feeding on plants, insects, and small mammals. Not impressive enough yet. Then a Piscion appears, several times the size of a modern hunting dog, capable of taking down large mammals. Then comes Porosaurus from the water, body length exceeding 11 meters, weight over 6 tons, with the most terrifying bite force of any land creature. And then Wanambi, a snake of staggering size with absurdly high combat power. Then Argentavis, a bird with a wingspan like a small aircraft. And when the screen cuts to the ocean, the true titans of this world make every single person hold their breath. Megalodon, body length exceeding 20 meters, weight over 90 tons. Its open jaw alone spans an incredible 3 meters across. After dinosaurs vacated the land, the titans did not truly disappear. They sank into the ocean and continued to rule a different world. Its massive frame, its terrifying bite force, its position at the top of the food chain, it makes nations across the room light up instantly. To many, this looks like the direct successor to the ocean lords of the dinosaur age. Potential picks keep piling up on the table. Saber-tooth cats, Epicyon, Porosaurus, Megalodon. Every single one looks absurdly powerful. Every single one seems worth betting on. But then, just as everyone's attention is consumed by these colossal beasts and apex predators, the sky screen fast-forwards again, jumping to 580,000 years ago, and the footage shifts away from the vast grasslands and deep-sea giants, cutting to a sparse patch of trees at the edge of the grasslands. In the branches, a group of apes perches cautiously. Occasionally they manage a brief upright stance, but most of the time they rely on arm strength to swing between branches. Timid by nature, startled by the slightest sound, surviving on fruit. Strength, size, speed, all of it is nearly worthless compared to the apex species shown before. They look almost pitiful in their weakness. And the sky screen gives their name, Ardipithecus. So fragile that they do not even dare set foot on the ground. The timeline continues racing forward, millions of years passing in an instant against the vast scale of evolutionary history. Until 4,400,000 years ago, the racing timeline finally halts. At the same moment, the system's mechanical voice sounds in every observer's ears. The age of giants is over. Mammals have taken the stage, diversifying into thousands of forms. A new competition is about to begin. A new ruler of the world is about to emerge. Earth Online's new patch is now live. All civilization observers have 30 minutes to select their species. The voice fades, and the people in the virtual space begin vanishing one by one. All I feel is a flash of white light. When I open my eyes, I am standing on the grasslands of 4,400,000 years ago. Soft earth beneath my feet, the air so crisp it feels nothing like the modern world. Large animals moving in the distance. The species selection phase officially begins. In this moment, I have been handed something like a creator's perspective. A single thought is enough to pull up data on any creature in this world, and another thought teleports me directly to that species for a close look. But the window is only 30 minutes, not nearly enough time to go through every species. So every observer must first narrow down a direction based on the patch preview, then check the data, then verify in person, and lock in a choice as fast as possible. The rules are the same as the last few patches. If multiple observers want the same species, they enter a system-run competition. It might be rock, paper, scissors, a mental challenge, or even pure physical combat. Winner takes the species. Loser has to find another. And if someone still has not decided by the end, the system assigns one at random. The moment the rules drop, the livestream chat erupts. In Dragon Nation's stream, most viewers assume the saber-tooth cat is the most contested meta pick this patch. That clip of it hunting giant mammals in the preview was just too powerful to ignore. Some take a more cautious position, arguing that if the competition is going to be brutal, it might be smarter to go straight for proboscideans, big and reliable. Not worth burning time on a contested fight. But even more people are not even worried about which species to pick. They are worried about whether Stellan will pick anything at all. Because based on what is leaked, he is known around school as someone who sleeps through class, completely checked out, a total slacker. Last patch, Iron Nation lost the bidding war and failed to secure the strongest dinosaur, and that mistake haunted them later. Now it is Stellan's turn, and no one dares to hope for much. But I never had any intention of fighting the whole world for a saber-tooth cat. In my eyes, the real meta pick this patch is not any of those impressive-looking predators. It is a pick that looks like a total trash pick on the surface, Ardipithecus. Or more precisely, the future upright terror. The so-called upright terror is just a nickname for the evolutionary path leading to humanity's ancestors. Ardipithecus marks the critical boundary where apes begin transitioning toward humans. But at this point in time, 4,400,000 years ago, it is painfully weak, barely surviving against the large predators roaming the grasslands and forests, just barely clinging to existence. Under normal history, it would take another 2 million plus years of evolution, waiting for bipedalism, tools, fire, and group cooperation to gradually develop, before it could truly enter the upright terror stage. But normal history is too slow, and I happen to have 3 chances to actively intervene in its evolution. These 3 chances are basically a cheat code. Used precisely enough, they can dramatically compress the timeline of this evolutionary path. Looking across the entire patch, no other species even comes close to matching the potential of future humanity. Everyone else sees a weak little ape. What I see is the future ruler of the food chain, the ultimate answer that will reshape the entire world order. So, I pull up Ardipithecus' stats panel without a second of hesitation. Ardipithecus. Strength, 3 stars. Speed, 2 stars. Reaction, 3 stars. Endurance, 4 stars. Intelligence, 5 stars. Energy costs, 6 stars. A stat spread that would make almost anyone cringe. Strength is weak. Speed is weak. Reaction is average. Endurance barely passes. The only remotely bright spot is intelligence. But the energy cost is absurdly high, sitting at 6 stars. That means it eats a lot, burns through resources fast, and has almost no margin for error, practically a textbook example of a species that deserves to go extinct. And at the same time, Dragon Nation's research division is watching Stellan's every move. Dr. Voss watches him linger on Ardipithecus' stats panel, his frown deepening by the second. The comparison is brutal. The saber-tooth cat next door, strength 7 stars, speed 5 stars, reaction 7 stars, endurance 6 stars, intelligence 4 stars, energy cost 5 stars. Aside from slightly lower intelligence, it is practically a perfect all-rounder. Proboscideans are slow, but their strength consistently hits 8 or 9 stars, the kind of raw power that overrides everything else. Balanced species have balanced strategies. Specialists have their own edge. But Ardipithecus? Besides the insane energy cost, that flaw alone sticks out like a wound, and there is simply nothing else worth betting on. So Dr. Voss assumes Stellan is just browsing out of curiosity, that he will move on soon enough. And Stellan does start flipping through other species, over a dozen of them, which gives the research team a small breath of relief. They think he is finally doing some comparison. But in reality, I am just locking in what I already know. Nobody is going to fight over a trash pick like Ardipithecus anyway. And even if someone did, in a world that does not study fossils, does not believe in evolutionary chains, where creationism is the universal truth, nobody knows how to play this card. Nobody can even imagine that humanity could rise from a group of creatures this weak. And besides, even if I somehow fail to secure Ardipithecus, I am confident enough in my 3 interventions to carry any other species all the way to the end of the patch. But if I want first place, this is the only line worth betting on. After reviewing enough data, I finally make my move. I lock in Ardipithecus' habitat and trigger the teleport. 1 second later, I vanish from the open grassland and appear at the edge of a sparse forest. But a nearby area is anything but quiet. 7 or 8 civilization observers are clustered together near a lake, the tension between them sharp enough to cut. Eagle Nation's Drake, Bear Nation's Vera, Sakura Nation's Soren, all of them are there. This is the saber-tooth cat's habitat. Clearly this group is fighting over one of the most contested species this patch. The moment I appear, every head turns in my direction. Soren narrows his eyes, hostility written plainly on his face. Drake instinctively tenses up, clearly reading Stellan as a rival. But Vera is the first to extend an olive branch, offering a temporary alliance to eliminate the others first. Back in Dragon Nation's stream, the audience feels something unexpected stir in their chests. A flicker of hope. He showed up. Maybe he finally came to his senses. Maybe he is ready to fight for something real. But in the next second, I just wave my hand and calmly decline. You guys fight over this one. I already have my target. I will leave you to it. And I actually mean it. Not even a moment of hesitation, not a single glance back. I walk straight past the saber-tooth cat's habitat and keep moving. The people standing there are stunned, and so is the entire livestream. The top meta pick is right there, and I do not even try to compete. Even if I might not win, shouldn't I at least try? But I skip the whole process entirely and just walk away. Nobody can figure out what Stellan is doing, but they quickly stop caring, because as time runs down, once the final 10 minutes hit, the system forcibly pulls everyone competing for the same species into a match. Winner takes everything. Loser walks away empty-handed. The saber-tooth cat standoff is about to become a brutal contest. Meanwhile, I have already made my way to a tree deep in the forest. In the branches above, a small ape hides behind a cluster of leaves, scanning its surroundings with careful, nervous eyes, tense like a creature that is always ready to bolt at any moment. I look up at it for a moment, then submit my answer to the system. Dragon Nation Civilization Observer confirms observed species, Ardipithecus. With no competing claims, a beam of light descends almost immediately, wrapping both me and the ape in its glow. The system's mechanical voice fires off in sequence. Dragon Nation Civilization Observer Stellan has confirmed observed species, Ardipithecus. Binding in progress, binding complete. The moment that announcement drops, Dragon Nation collectively loses it. Over in the research division, Dr. Voss's teacup hits the floor with a crash, hot water splashing across his pants, and he does not even notice. The entire lab goes dead silent first, then erupts into a wave of disbelieving gasps. Every strong species on the table ignored. And he picks Ardipithecus. Weak in every single stat. If that is not insane, what is? Even worse, even more alarming, combined with what is in Stellan's file, the part about how he completely fell apart after his breakup, like someone who has given up on everything. People in the research division start wondering if he is mentally unstable and doing this on purpose just to burn everything down. The more they think about it, the more it fits. The more they think about it, the more hopeless it feels, because no sane person makes this choice under these circumstances. And across every other nation's live stream, the whole situation has become one giant joke. Iron Nation, Sakura Nation, Eagle Nation viewers all pile on, mocking Dragon Nation for voluntarily handing over their shot. Some say Dragon Nation is gift-wrapping its national fate and handing it to the enemy. Others sarcastically bring up the Monkey King, saying maybe a monkey really can shake the heavens after all. Dragon Nation's viewers explode with rage, but they cannot actually argue back, because Ardipithecus' stats are so obviously terrible that there is nothing to stand on. But I could not care less about any of it. In my eyes, Ardipithecus is an absolute late-game god. If you had to mark a turning point, the moment the throwing skill unlocks is roughly when the late game officially begins. And by that point, who would dare call this a trash pick? The 30 minutes pass fast. Every nation finalizes their species one by one. The most watched contest of all, the fight for the saber-tooth cat, ends with a winner nobody expected. Iron Nation's Jude takes it. That outcome catches a lot of people off guard. Eagle Nation's Drake turns out to be the first one knocked out of the competition. After losing the saber-tooth cat, he pivots immediately and secures Argentavis, locking in the undisputed ruler of the skies. Bear Nation's Vera loses the saber-tooth cat but comes back and wins Stegodon in the Proboscidean contest. The one result that truly breaks Dragon Nation's audience is Sakura Nation's Soren. He barely survives to the end with nothing locked in, forced to wait for a random system assignment, and somehow draws a Piscion, a pack-based apex predator. The luck is beyond ridiculous. Dragon Nation's stream sinks even lower. Their own side voluntarily took the weakest pick in the entire patch, while their opponents are pulling strong cards even through random draws. How is anyone supposed to compete with that? Soon after the system announces the new patch has officially begun, all civilization observers return to the virtual space and take their seats, a live evolutionary feed for their chosen species appearing before each of them. Since a single patch spans hundreds of thousands to millions of years, the system compresses the entire timeline into roughly 1 month, advancing like a nature documentary on fast forward, keeping only the critical turning points. And so, the fate of Ardipithecus unfolds in front of everyone. Once the image sharpens, the first thing that fills the screen is the deterioration of the environment. Severe climate shifts have left the once relatively dense rainforest growing thinner and thinner, the gaps between trees widening with every passing season. The small ape I am bound to huddles at the end of a branch on a lone tree, watching its surroundings with wary eyes. This patch of forest never had many of its kind to begin with, and with food already scarce, every wild fruit in the canopy has been stripped clean. The little ape has not eaten in 2 days. And what makes it even more brutal is that just this morning, an old ape starved to death and fell from the branches. Not long after hitting the ground, a saber-toothed cat dragged the body away. The little ape does not fully understand what death means, but something deep in its DNA keeps sending one unbreakable signal: the ground is danger. Touch it and you die. And yet hunger is pushing it toward death just the same. From its branch, it spots another patch of trees about 100 meters away. Maybe there is fruit there. Maybe there is a way out. But those 100 meters, for an Ardipithecus that only knows how to move through branches, might as well be an uncrossable abyss. It stares at the ground below, every cell in its body screaming a warning. Fear drives it backward by instinct, retreating to a thicker, higher branch, as if distance from the ground means distance from death. Dragon Nation's stream fills with groans. Most viewers have already written this off as a nightmare start with extinction written all over it. Nothing to eat up in the trees, nothing but predators waiting below. There is no way out for these apes. But I keep my eyes locked on the screen, more focused than anyone else in the room, because I know that history-defining moment might be just one step away. Hunger and fear are colliding inside a brain no bigger than an orange. It cannot think the way a human thinks, but the survival instinct is just as relentless. Trees gave the Ardipithecus a million years of shelter, and so they clung to the branches all this time. But now, the trees are not enough. The environment has changed. The old way of surviving cannot hold anymore. To live, it has to find a new one. Finally, hunger wins over fear. The little ape grabs the branch, swings its body out into open air, holds for just a moment, then lets go. A soft thud. For the first time, it truly lands on the ground. Fear floods back almost instantly. It spins around in a panic, as if death itself is about to lunge from the shadows. But survival gives it no time to freeze. It starts running with all four limbs at once, scrambling and leaping toward that patch of trees 100 meters away. And as it runs, its front limbs start getting in the way. So its spine begins to straighten. Little by little, the scrambling crawl gradually shifting into something closer to upright running. Strides growing longer, posture rising higher. And just like that, before it even has time to realize what is happening, it crashes through to the edge of the new tree line and plunges into a world full of hanging fruit. It survives. And every ape back in that sparse forest watches the whole thing. They lean forward, staring across the gap at that little ape burying its face in fruit, eating like nothing else matters. They do not understand roots. They do not understand lessons learned. But hunger is the most primal signal there is. The first one went, the second and third start stirring. Soon the second ape drops to the ground, then the third, then the fourth. More and more Ardipithecus leap from the branches and sprint toward that tree line 100 meters away. The ground is still dangerous, but it is no longer completely off limits. In the streams, some viewers are starting to feel something shift in them. Some admit they had no hope for these apes at all, but watching them force themselves to take this step just to stay alive still hits different. But at the same time, the overwhelming majority remains skeptical, because when you look at the actual outcome, this is just a bunch of weaklings finally figuring out how to look for food on the ground. Compared to predators already hunting large animals in coordinated packs, the gap is still terrifying. And yet, right in the middle of all that complicated emotion, something far more brutal arrives. 20 or 30 apes hit the ground one after another and start sprinting, and the noise finally draws the attention of a nearby saber-tooth cat. At first, the apex predator seems almost surprised, as if it never expected that the timid little creatures who always hid in the trees would today just stroll out into the open and expose themselves like this. It slowly lowers its body, completely silent, closing the distance without a sound, until the gap is right, and then it explodes forward. One lunge, one pin, and the ape it catches never even has a chance to struggle. The size difference is simply too extreme. One paw from the saber-tooth cat covers nearly half the ape's entire body. Then that jaw opens, capable of spreading to 120 degrees, and those two saber fangs come down like curved blades, precise and merciless, severing the ape's last chance at life. The struggle fades fast. Within seconds, the ape goes completely still, dragged away in the saber-tooth cat's jaws. The whole sequence is clean, efficient, almost cold. Iron Nation's stream explodes with celebration. After all, Judah's bound to the saber-tooth cat, and the prey just happened to be Dragon Nation's own Ardipithecus. Iron Nation viewers flood into Dragon Nation's stream to rub it in. Comments like, "Thanks for the free meal," "A bunch of monkeys with zero fighting ability," and "You handed them the win yourselves," pour in endlessly. Dragon Nation's viewers were already sitting on a short fuse. Now they completely blow up and launch a full counter-raid, thousands of them storming Iron Nation's stream and burying the chat under pure volume. Before long, Iron Nation's stream is practically a second Dragon Nation channel. But none of that noise reaches me. As far as I am concerned, losing one or two Ardipithecus is not the point. Nature has always moved forward through brutal selection. What I actually care about is that the whole group has finally set foot on the ground, that under the pressure of life and death they are beginning to run, beginning to stand upright. Because in my eyes, this step matters more than fire or tools ever will. Bipedalism is the foundation of everything. The reason primates even have access to this path is precisely because they spent so long climbing and leaping through branches. Gripping branches shaped their feet, made them wide enough, hand-like enough with enough grip strength to actually support a fully upright body. Look at the rest of nature. Most predators are digitigrade, walking on their toes like felids, sacrificing stability for speed. Prey animals go even further. Most are ungulagrade, essentially sprinting on their toenails. Yes, they are faster, but they have completely given up any chance at true bipedalism. And only through bipedalism can the hands be freed. Hands that no longer have to carry the body or push off the ground will gradually evolve towards something far more refined. Grabbing, pinching, gripping, twisting, striking, throwing, every one of those abilities is built on the single foundation of hands finally being free. And only once that happens can tools be born. Only then does fire become something that can be controlled. Otherwise, even if another animal somehow understood how to make fire by friction, using its mouth to drill, it could drill for a year and never produce a single spark. So I wait. I wait for Ardipithecus to carve standing upright into the tribe's instinct, wait for all of it to fully stabilize, because only then is the timing right for my first intervention. The footage keeps moving. The apes that reached the new tree line have survived, at least for now. But what happened today means far more to them than simply finding food. They came down from the trees for the first time. They crossed 100 meters of open death for the first time. They learned for the first time that the ground, while dangerous, is not completely forbidden. What they did today will slowly settle into their genes and instincts like the most primitive piece of code ever written. The next time food runs out, they will migrate again. And the time after that, again. Once, twice, 20 times, 30 times, until one day the ground is no longer just a word for fear. It becomes their home. Evolution has always worked this way, learning to adapt inside danger, learning to use what they adapt to, and eventually conquering the environment entirely. As evening falls, the sun drops below the horizon, and the sky is so clear it barely feels real. No steel towers, no smoke or haze, just an endless ceiling of stars. Up in the branches, the ape that was first to drop to the ground today sits quietly, perfectly still. Normally it would already be asleep by now, but tonight it ate too much, its stomach too full and uncomfortable to lie down. So it just sits there, doing nothing. Wind moves through its thin fur, and those eyes that should be empty, suddenly find a gap in the leaves and drift upward toward the night sky. It sees the river of stars, and it just keeps looking. Not a glance, not two, but a long, unbroken gaze. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours. The sky screen itself locks onto it in this moment. Nobody knows what it is doing, and nobody knows what it is thinking. By all logic, a brain no bigger than an orange should not be capable of supporting anything resembling thought. But is that really true? The sky screen holds its shot on that small ape staring up at the stars, and both Dragon Nation's research team and the stream audience are getting restless. Every other civilization observer is busy breaking down stats, studying behavioral patterns, identifying weaknesses, calculating how to boost strength, increase speed, swap environments, pushing their species towards something as close to perfect as possible. But here I am, utterly fascinated by a single ape sitting on a branch doing absolutely nothing, my camera locked on it without moving. From their perspective, this is completely pointless. Why keep watching a stuffed little ape zoning out on a branch, when you could be checking on the rest of the Ardipithecus group? At least you might be able to pull out some useful data on physical weaknesses and future intervention angles. Even Dr. Voss cannot figure out what Stellan is doing right now. Other than being completely checked out, they genuinely cannot think of another explanation. But nobody here understands what bipedalism truly means for Ardipithecus. And nobody understands what it means for an ape to stare at a sky full of stars for the very first time. Maybe it is not real thinking yet. A brain the size of an orange cannot carry complex logic. But awareness is clearly beginning to take root. And once awareness exists, curiosity, fear, courage, loss, all the most primitive emotions begin to emerge alongside it. Why is it staring at those glowing things in the sky? Maybe it is just pure curiosity about what they are, whether they can be eaten. Maybe the stars are simply too bright, too far, too magnetic to look away from, and it just forgets to look down. Whatever the answer is, the outcome is already written. In this moment, it develops curiosity toward the stars, and that curiosity alone is a turning point in history. It may never be able to, in its short lifetime, touch those points of light, or ever answer the question forming inside it. But this first flicker of feeling will act like a signal, impossibly faint yet impossibly stubborn, slowly settling into the deepest layers of its genes, passed down through bloodline after bloodline. Its descendants may one day look up again on an ordinary night, see the same sky full of stars, and feel the same ancient confusion stir in the deepest part of their genes. Generation after generation, 100 years, 1,000, 10,000, 1,000,000, until millions of years later, that question which endured across all of time is finally given a real answer. For everyone else, Earth Online is just a game of national fate. But for me, this feels more like watching the entire origin story of humanity unfold directly in front of my eyes. Billions of years of evolution, from single cells to prehistoric apes, just to finally arrive at the first living thing that stops, looks up, and stares at the universe. And after that, in only a few million more years, humanity will actually reach the stars. If gazing up at the stars is like finding a gemstone lying on the ground, then all of human civilization that followed was simply the long journey of finally bending down to pick it up. So I record this moment carefully. In my view, the moment the first ape looked up at the stars, humanity's exploration of the universe was already 80% complete. My notebook fills up fast, but the weight of this moment is something nobody else here can feel. Then the sky screen accelerates again. The rise and fall of a species never happens overnight. Ever since the first Ardipithecus set foot on the ground just to survive, and ran toward a new patch of trees, that behavior has been inherited by the entire group, passed down and carried forward. Soon, when the fruit in the new trees runs out again, Ardipithecus does not trap itself in the canopy like before. It climbs down a second time, a third time, migrating toward somewhere farther. Since the old environment can no longer sustain them, they chase the food. They adapt to new ground. And so, trees gradually stop being their only lifeline. They begin spending more and more time on the ground, surviving while being hunted by apex predators from every direction. And the thing holding all of this together is bipedalism. The downsides are obvious, speed drops, escaping predators becomes harder, but it also brings something extremely important to the table. First, energy cost drops. Moving on four limbs is like running full all-wheel drive, all four contact points pushing at once, stable but extremely costly. Two-legged upright movement is more like a pendulum constantly tipping forward and catching itself, the body using gravity's momentum to alternate steps forward, and the result is that with the same physical reserves, the energy burned by upright walking is significantly lower. In the 6-stat system, Ardipithecus's absurdly high energy cost stat drops from 6 stars all the way down to 5. And beyond that, bipedalism brings one more advantage, more immediate and more physical than the rest: heat regulation. A four-legged animal exposes its entire back to the sun, too much surface area absorbing heat, and once it starts running long distances, its body temperature spikes dangerously fast. But once Ardipithecus stands upright, the surface area facing the sun shrinks dramatically, the body cools far more efficiently, and it can keep moving through intense heat for much longer. The result is a meaningful boost to endurance. They can travel farther, push through longer, and search a much wider range for food. And so a species that looked hopelessly fragile manages to survive from the very start of the patch all the way through, not just surviving but beginning to show signs of expansion and growth. Soon the sky screen locks onto a pregnant female Ardipithecus, her belly swollen, new life growing inside her. This should be the symbol of the entire species continuing forward. But this is also exactly where the most lethal cost of bipedalism is exposed for the first time with brutal clarity. When labor begins, the female Ardipithecus contorts in agony, the entire birth process far more grueling than anyone watching anticipated. Her instinctive screams echo across the open wilderness. To modern humans, a cry during childbirth is simply pain. But in a prehistoric environment full of predators, this is essentially broadcasting her location. One wrong moment and it could draw every nearby predator straight to them, sending the whole group to their deaths. This time they are lucky. No large predators are in the area. But the problem is that nature does not run on luck every time. Inside Dragon Nation's research division, Dr. Voss watches this unfold and finally sees the full picture. He points out that gorillas and monkeys can occasionally walk upright, but that is not true human-style bipedalism. Their hips are wider, their legs shorter, they have to splay their feet outward and bow their legs just to stay balanced, and most of the time they still need their hands for support. Long-distance running is out of the question. Even standing steadily is a challenge. But Ardipithecus is different. From the first time they touched the ground to the generations that followed, their posture keeps straightening, their legs draw closer together, their walking pattern is becoming closer and closer to true human movement. In other words, they are developing a trait that should only belong to humans. By the current standards of Blue Star's understanding, this is nothing short of earth-shattering. Because this world runs on creationism. Humans are unique. Humans are superior. Who would ever accept that apes in a game are replicating human capabilities? The shock is real, but biology does not care about anyone's beliefs. The real problem arrives fast. Bipedalism means the pelvis gradually narrows and the fetus is constantly being pulled downward by gravity. For most four-legged mammals, giving birth is a fairly natural process. A mare can deliver standing up without much difficulty. Egg-laying animals simply drop their eggs and move on. But Ardipithecus is different. The narrowed pelvis turns childbirth into a genuine fight for survival. On screen, the female Ardipithecus labors for over an hour before barely managing to deliver her infant. Any single complication would have been enough to kill both of them. Dr. Voss quickly identifies something even more brutal. To pass through the narrowed birth canal at all, the infant cannot fully develop inside the mother. It has to be born early. In other words, Ardipithecus infants must be born the way human babies are, premature and unfinished. And this is exactly why human children take so long to learn to walk, while most mammals can stand and run not long after birth. For humans who already sit at the top of the food chain, this is a minor inconvenience. But for Ardipithecus, which can be targeted by a predator at any moment, this is nearly a death sentence. A species already weak in every way, with a birth process this dangerous, and infants this helpless, looks like a species walking straight into extinction. And so Dragon Nation's research division reaches a quick consensus. If external support becomes available later, the safest course of action might be to trigger an intervention and push Ardipithecus away from bipedalism, back to a four-limbed mode that actually suits them. Dr. Voss even has the team start immediately recording current data on Ardipithecus pelvis structure, spinal alignment, muscle distribution, and walking patterns, preparing to study in advance how to reverse what they see as a fatal mistake. The viewers in Dragon Nation's stream do not have Dr. Voss's level of expertise, but they are already watching with their skin crawling. Bear Nation's stegodon calf can stand and walk from the moment it is born, at least giving it a basic chance at survival. But the newborn Ardipithecus on my side is so weak, it looks like an unfinished lump of flesh, and the mother has been nearly drained empty. And throughout everything Ardipithecus has faced so far, every other species has either been slaughtering everything in sight or demonstrating how powerful they are. Ardipithecus alone has done nothing but run, surviving on wild fruit and roots, looking like a species with no advantages anywhere. And yet I still do not move, because in my view, a fatal weakness is not necessarily a bad thing. More often than not, it becomes the pressure that forces evolution to break through, just like the environment forced Ardipithecus off the trees in the first place. When life hits a dead end, it tends to carve its own way out. So I keep watching the screen, in no rush to spend any of my interventions. Soon the sky screen delivers a closer look at the outcome. The newborn Ardipithecus is exactly as fragile as expected. Eyes still sealed shut. Limbs tiny and powerless, fur so thin it is almost nothing. It can only lie on the large leaf the mother found in advance, squirming weakly like a small caterpillar. It makes soft, fragile sounds, the only way it has to communicate any need. The mother is completely spent, but the maternal drive written into every mammal's genes still pushes her forward. She struggles to gather the infant into her arms and tries to nurse it. But the problem is that birth has drained every last bit of her strength and nutrition. She cannot produce even a single drop of milk. Without food, this underdeveloped infant cannot survive even one day. And what makes it even more brutal is that the other Ardipithecus nearby are only together because it is safer in numbers. They have no concept of helping one another. They can see the mother's desperate situation and have no idea what to do about it. Helping is still a completely foreign idea at this stage of their development. The mother looks around, and for the first time something unmistakably complex surfaces in those otherwise hollow eyes. Eventually her gaze lands on a larger, stronger male Ardipithecus nearby, the biological father of her infant. By the most common logic in nature, the male provides genes, then leaves. Raising offspring is the female's responsibility alone. But this time, the male Ardipithecus moves. He digs through a patch of grass and pulls out 2 wild fruits he had hidden there earlier. He carries them over to the mother, makes a few low sounds, as if trying to express something he does not yet have the words for. She seems to understand. She nearly snatches the fruit from him, cramming it into her mouth urgently. She knows she has to replenish her nutrition immediately to produce milk, to keep the infant in her arms alive. And the male does not react with frustration at losing the food. He just tilts his head, glancing between the mother and that pitifully small infant. At this point, his brain has expanded from the early orange size to something closer to a grapefruit. The increase in brain volume brings not only faster reactions, but also the very beginnings of forming judgment. He seems to genuinely realize for the first time that this fragile little creature is bound to him in ways he cannot fully name. Offspring are the deepest code running in every living thing. No matter the species, everything ultimately comes back to reproduction and continuation. And so, he completes what may be the hardest thought he has ever had since he was born. If the offspring is going to survive, the mother has to survive first. And the mother, holding the infant, cannot forage or protect herself alone. In other words, as long as the infant has not grown, he has to stay. In this moment, he perhaps touches the edge of something called responsibility for the very first time. To everyone else watching, this is just a male Ardipithecus handing over 2 pieces of fruit. Unremarkable, nothing worth noting. But I watch it and feel something shift in my chest. Because I know this is the same kind of moment as the first ape dropping from the branch and touching the ground. Small, but pivotal. A turning point in history. Evolution has never been about an overnight miracle. It has always been about countless tiny, insignificant changes stacking on top of each other under the pressure of life and death, until they finally rewrite the entire path of a species. The brutal difficulty of childbirth brought on by bipedalism. Upright Ardipithecus cannot survive alone. A mother on her own simply cannot keep a newborn this fragile alive. For the next generation to survive, something new has to emerge. And so, the family unit begins to take root. The male does not leave. Instead, he quietly stays close to the mother and the infant. At first, he has no idea what to actually do, so he just stays there, awkward and watchful. But as time passes, he starts going out to find food and bringing it back. And this is exactly where another massive advantage of bipedalism reveals itself. Transport. No matter how powerful a 4-legged animal is, the only reliable way to carry anything is with its mouth. It can drag prey to somewhere relatively safe, but it cannot run far while clamping down on heavy food. And it definitely cannot fight while holding something in its jaws. Leftover meat usually has to be abandoned, and the scavengers get the rest. But Ardipithecus is different. Bipedalism frees their hands. They can hold things to their chest and carry them, move food from one place to another, and bring extra resources back to their mate and infant. This seems ordinary, but it is actually terrifying in its implications. The moment food can be reliably carried home, the entire cost of raising offspring changes. The mother no longer has to risk foraging at her most vulnerable, and can pour more energy into nursing the infant instead. With longer and more consistent care, infant survival rates climb dramatically. In other words, the reproductive disadvantage of bipedalism does not drive Ardipithecus toward extinction. It forces them to solve the problem through the family unit. And once the family exists, something far more profound takes root alongside it, the foundation of civilization. Family brings stable division of labor. Division of labor brings higher order cooperation. And where cooperation and friction coexist, civilization truly becomes possible. So in my eyes, bipedalism and the family unit are the two puzzle pieces that have just clicked into place. Not complete yet, but the direction could not be clearer. And quickly this change spreads beyond the individual to the whole tribe. Ardipithecus no longer forages alone. They move in pairs, in groups of 4 or 5. More bodies means more eyes. Alertness explodes. They naturally spread their attention, each one watching a different direction, and the moment anything stirs, an alarm call goes out immediately. They are even starting to cover each other and retreat together when danger hits. And it is precisely because of this that Iron Nation is the first to notice something is wrong. Iron Nation's species is the saber-tooth cat. And for a long stretch before this, Ardipithecus had been the saber-tooth cat's most reliable and easiest prey. Every time Iron Nation's viewers watched a saber-tooth cat take down an Ardipithecus without breaking a sweat, they went wild, as if losing to Dragon Nation in the real world did not matter as long as they were winning in this one. But somehow, as time passes, they keep noticing that hunting Ardipithecus is getting harder and harder for no obvious reason. In the past, a saber-tooth cat only had to lock onto its target and the kill was almost guaranteed. Now they are getting spotted from far away, and the Ardipithecus bolts the moment it senses trouble. And their escapes are clearly more organized. The sky screen quickly delivers the most telling example yet. Jude locks his view onto a saber-tooth cat positioned closest to the Ardipithecus territory. The cat does not disappoint. It picks up the scent of Ardipithecus from a distance early on. And it knows that charging straight into dense trees and brush would be a mistake. The Ardipithecus would just scramble back up into the canopy and the hunt would fail. So it chooses to wait. The greatest weapon of an apex predator is never just the lunge, it is patience. The cat flattens itself in the grass and holds completely still for hours, until the midday sun hits its peak, and 4 Ardipithecus finally emerge together. They deliberately chose this window to forage, and clearly that is no accident. At peak heat, 4-legged predators tend to go still, but Ardipithecus, thanks to the superior heat dissipation of bipedalism, are actually better suited to move around in these conditions. But this time, they run straight into a hunter with more patience than the heat can wear down. The saber-tooth cat slowly sinks lower, creeping forward, muscles coiling tighter, like a bow pulled to its limit, just waiting for the moment to release. But then, just as the cat is about to explode forward, the Ardipithecus on watch duty suddenly picks up something wrong. It lets out a sharp, urgent call. Every note of it screams danger. Even the saber-tooth cat flinches at the sound, its momentum breaking for just a beat. And in the next second, all 4 Ardipithecus spin and run at the exact same moment. What makes it even more impressive is that they scatter in completely different directions, clearly operating on some kind of instinctive protocol. The moment you are spotted, split up immediately. This forces the predator into indecision. The saber-tooth cat freezes, head swinging left then right, unable to commit to any direction. The window for a clean strike evaporates. By the time it finally picks a target, all 4 Ardipithecus have already put serious distance between themselves and the cat. And the brutal midday sun is driving the cat's body temperature up fast. It opens its jaw wide, gasping in heavy breaths, its body already hitting the edge of overheating. Food matters, but if the chase pushes too hard and costs the cat its own life, that is a losing trade. So it has no choice but to watch those Ardipithecus disappear into the distance, then drag itself back to the shade. Iron Nation's livestream completely loses it. They cannot accept that a group of apes that should be easy pickings is somehow getting harder and harder to catch. And more importantly, as far as they are concerned, this is not something Ardipithecus evolved on their own. Stellan must have used an intervention without anyone noticing. Because how else could a bunch of weak little apes slip away right under a saber-toothed cat's nose? And so, the more Iron Nation thinks about it, the more convinced they become. Even Jude himself turns and glances towards Stellan, eyes narrowed, almost certain he has already made a move. From Jude's perspective, Stellan most likely boosted Ardipithecus's reaction speed or awareness, which is why they are detecting threats so early. What Jude does not know is that Stellan, up to this very moment, has not used a single intervention. But that does not really matter right now. Since Iron Nation has already decided Dragon Nation moved first, they are not going to sit back and watch. Jude quickly decides to spend one of his intervention slots right now, and activates external support at the same time. Interventions in Earth Online are never as simple as just picking a stat boost. Increasing strength means reworking the muscles. Increasing size means restructuring the skeleton. Making a land animal survive in water means rebuilding from the respiratory system up. Get any part of it wrong and the whole chain collapses. You cannot just slap gills onto a land predator and call it done, because the likely outcome is a creature breathing through gills on land and switching to lungs underwater, which just kills it. So when it comes to this, Jude is not about to make any calls on his own. His intervention count drops from 3 to 2. Shortly after, Iron Nation's research line connects. The team on the other end has been ready and waiting. In their view, this could be the best chance they have to lock in a real lead, so their stance is completely clear. Use this intervention to build total dominance. The research team does not recommend modifying the saber-tooth cat's physical structure directly, and the reason is simple: they do not understand this creature thoroughly enough. Boosting it carelessly could easily break what already makes it strong, so instead, they aim at something else entirely: behavioral patterns and habitat preferences. Through extended observation, they discover that the saber-tooth cat mostly hunts alone, but it does not hold its territory with any strong exclusivity. In the same region, seeing 2 or 3, even 3 or 4 saber-tooth cats at once is not unusual. They exist somewhere between solitary and social. Given that, there is no need to touch its body at all. Instead, change its behavior. Make them feel like their current territory is uncomfortable, that they need to move somewhere better, and that somewhere better happens to be exactly where Ardipithecus currently lives. This is basically an open-face siege. A single saber-tooth cat is already terrifying on its own, but if more and more of them converge on the same territory, then no matter how well Ardipithecus cooperates, no matter how sharp their early warning system gets, escaping a coordinated mass of apex predators becomes nearly impossible. And what makes it even more frightening is that this is not just about targeting Ardipithecus. From Iron Nation's research team's perspective, the real hidden meta of this patch may no longer be about keeping your own species alive. It may be about using interventions to launch an ecological level squeeze, crushing the survival space of everyone else. Once the strategy is set, Jude moves immediately. The territory Ardipithecus currently calls home is already a geographically complex zone, with forest, open grassland, hills, and shrubland all packed in together. A small number of saber-tooth cats already patrol the surrounding area. But the moment Iron Nation's behavioral intervention lands, every saber-tooth cat across the entire continent suddenly carries a new instinct buried deep. Where they live now does not feel right, does not feel like it fits them, and their true territory is somewhere else. And so, a massive migration begins. One saber-tooth cat after another abandons its old ground and moves toward the same destination. The sky screen throws up a full continental map, and countless red dots begin drifting in from every direction. A rough count putting the number already in the tens of thousands. Among them, some may stop along the way if they find a similar feeling environment, but the overall momentum is already impossible to stop. The saber-tooth cat, already sitting at the top of the food chain, is being artificially driven toward a mass convergence. And once that force fully assembles around Ardipithecus territory, what gets rewritten will not just be a few hunts. It will be the entire ecological balance of the region. At that point, forget Ardipithecus alone. Every species in the surrounding area will likely be swept under by this predator flood. Watching the increasingly dense red dots close in on the map, Iron Nation is already starting to celebrate early. They can already picture wave after wave of saber-tooth cats rolling through, completely crushing Ardipithecus and casually wiping out every other competitor along the way. Dragon Nation, Sakura Nation, it does not matter. In their minds, everyone else has already become the next group of inevitable casualties. For a moment, all of Iron Nation sinks into a very comfortable daydream, and their behavioral intervention works fast. Before long, the number of saber-tooth cats operating inside Ardipithecus territory starts skyrocketing. Before, having 3 or 4 active saber-tooth cats in the area at once was already considered a lot. Now pairs and small groups of saber-tooth cats appear everywhere. The count has at least multiplied tenfold, and it keeps climbing. Which means everything Ardipithecus had just managed to build through cooperation, family units, and group vigilance is suddenly being squeezed until there is almost no room left to breathe. Before, spotting a single saber-tooth cat and running was enough. Now spotting one usually means several more are hiding nearby. Every time Ardipithecus ventures out to find food, they risk walking straight into a killing zone, and the odds of making it back safely keep dropping. Food sources are no longer stable, and the whole tribe is once again being pushed to the edge of collapse. Outside the sky screen, Dragon Nation's live stream practically explodes. Everyone can see it clearly. Iron Nation is not playing by any standard definition of competition. This is a direct and naked attack on Dragon Nation. The chat fills with people calling Iron Nation out for a dirty win, while others are practically screaming that since Iron Nation already made their move, Stella needs to act right now. Get Ardipithecus moving before more saber-tooth cats fully converge. Migrate them out, fast. Anything is better than sitting there like sitting ducks. Inside Dragon Nation's research division, Dr. Voss and the rest of the team are equally frantic. The problem is that they can see the crisis coming clearly, but they have no way to reach out first. Under the new rules, external support can only be activated by the Civilization Observer. The national team cannot step in unless that happens, which means until I press that button, the research division cannot even send me a single warning to move. And yet, the abnormal surge in saber-tooth cat numbers is something I have already noticed. I glance over at Jude from Iron Nation. He looks back at almost the exact same moment, as if we both sensed it. Then he smirks, lips moving soundlessly, making it completely clear he thinks I have already lost. I just look back at him, calm, and reply without making a sound, 4 words, short-sighted. Because from where I stand, what Iron Nation just pulled looks like an encirclement of Ardipithecus on the surface. But underneath, it is almost a form of self-destruction. The saber-tooth cat is already an apex predator. A single one holds its place at the top of the food chain through raw individual ability. But Iron Nation was not satisfied with that, and forced a mass concentration of saber-tooth cats into the same zone through intervention. Yes, this creates an overwhelming short-term military advantage, but they clearly never stopped to think about the fact that an ecosystem cannot function with just predators. Pack in more hunters and the prey does not multiply to match. Instead, the spike in danger drives prey away by pure instinct. Once the surrounding prey has been eaten out or scared off, this entire region will hit a resource collapse. When that happens, all those saber-tooth cats packed in together will not be able to feed themselves, and the situation will spiral out of control. So what looks like a suffocating show of force is actually short-sighted overkill. And beyond that, Ardipithecus has never had strong territorial instincts. They have been chased from sparse forest all the way up to the mountain ridges already. Moving is not a new concept for them at all. Seeking safety and avoiding danger is basic biological instinct. When a place becomes truly unlivable, they will keep running on their own. So I am not worried about Ardipithecus getting crushed by this wave. But Iron Nation's move did remind me of something. The groundwork Ardipithecus needs is mostly already in place. Bipedalism is there. The family unit is beginning to take hold. Cooperative instinct has emerged. Given all that, the time has come to equip the first real core ability. And the first intervention I have been planning for Ardipithecus has been clear from the very beginning. Unlock throwing. Under normal evolution, this step would take at least several 100,000 more years, waiting for Ardipithecus to fully settle into bipedalism and begin restructuring their upper limbs. Only then could this ability gradually emerge. But I do not have the time to wait for the patch to push forward naturally. I am going to compress this stretch of evolution myself. With that thought locked in, I pull up Ardipithecus's full stats panel and hit the intervention button. At that moment, Dragon Nation's research division finally lets out a long breath. At least from this one action, Stellan is not planning to do nothing. Dr. Voss immediately has everyone pull every piece of analysis they have, ready to go the moment he opens external support so they can deliver the most complete intervention recommendations instantly. Then the next second, they all just stare in disbelief. Because Stellan never even touches the external support button. He just starts operating on his own. The entire research team goes blank. But my thinking is perfectly clear. When it comes to the upright terror, what truly allows them to stand at the top of the world is not raw size. It is not brute strength either. It is a set of abilities that qualify as strategic advantages of an entirely different tier. Bipedalism is one, throwing is another. To give Ardipithecus a real throwing ability, the core is not teaching them how to toss something forward. It is restructuring their body to give them the biological hardware for throwing that is actually effective and dangerous. I start by looking at the spine and shoulders of Ardipithecus. At this point, after sustained bipedalism, they already have a clearly distinct S-shaped spine compared to four-legged animals, rather than the traditional C-shaped spine. This is critical, because the S-shaped spine does not just bear the vertical load of upright walking, it also gives the lower back far greater rotational power, allowing it to store and release energy like a coiled spring. That is the core energy loading foundation for any throwing motion. With that base already in place, the next thing to address is the shoulders. Right now, Ardipithecus shoulders are still much closer to a typical primate's. Short, limited range of motion, joints that feel like they are locked in place, completely incapable of the wide backward pull that charges a real throw. So the first thing I need to do is break that lock open. I start by extending the collarbone, widening the shoulders directly, bringing the shoulder line closer to a human structure. Then I adjust the shoulder positioning, adjust the shoulder joint's range of opening so the arm can pull back much further, then reinforce the muscles, tendons, and ligaments around the shoulder joint so the whole system is not just more stable, but also more elastic. To put it plainly, I am turning Ardipithecus's upper body into a true bio-bow. The wide collarbone is the frame, the expanded shoulder joint is the draw space, the reinforced tendons and ligaments are the bowstring, and the S-shaped spine combined with lower back rotation handles the additional power load. When it actually comes time to throw, the power no longer comes purely from the arm muscles pushing forward. It starts from a planted stance at the feet, flows through the rotating back and torso, loads through the pulled back shoulder, and finally the entire arm whips through in one fluid motion, creating a complete and efficient chain of kinetic transfer. What this means is Ardipithecus has finally broken free from the melee limitation that governs nearly every land creature in nature. Before my modification, Ardipithecus could already throw things, but it was more of a toss with a locked shoulder, severely restricted range of motion, and even at maximum effort the throwing speed barely reached about 30 kilometers per hour, with a range of only around 10 meters, posing almost no real threat. But after my modification, everything is different. They can now pull a stone back with a full draw, and then release the full elastic potential energy of the entire body into the throw. That is no longer a simple toss, that is an impact. 10 meters, 50 meters, these are distances that most predators in nature simply cannot bridge. If you want to suppress me, you have to close the gap first. The moment you close in, I fall back. The The moment you hesitate, I launch a ranged strike. And if they eventually unlock the ability to use tools as weapons, what they throw will no longer just be rocks. It will be something far more dangerous. Overwhelming close-range power means nothing if you cannot actually make contact. That is the essence of dimensional suppression. And this is exactly why I know this modification is not a standard stat boost. It is an ability exclusive to Ardipithecus and their human descendants, something no other creature can replicate, because this has never been just about changing the shoulder. It requires bipedalism, the spine, the lower back, the collarbone, the joints, and the ligaments all working in coordination. That is the only way this ability comes online. When I finish, I look at the results in front of me, and I am genuinely satisfied. As the intervention ends, every change I made to Ardipithecus ripples out instantly to the entire tribe. Body after body quietly begins to shift. Shoulders are wider, collarbones are longer. The muscles behind the shoulders carry a slight new ridge. Their overall build looks noticeably more solid. But even though the change is visible, it does not immediately change their daily routine, because they have no idea what just happened to their bodies. Life continues as normal, except that saber-tooth cats keep multiplying in the area, and the forest they used to call home is becoming more dangerous by the day. So Ardipithecus is forced to keep retreating further into the mountains. The mountain terrain is complex, which naturally limits how the saber-tooth cats can charge in, and the caves formed naturally in the rock offer far more protection than open forest. Right now, a female Ardipithecus sits at the cave entrance, holding her infant who is just a few months old, staring blankly into the distance. She is waiting for the males who went out to forage to come back. Ever since the family unit began to form, this division of labor has become more and more natural. The female handles nursing the infant, while the males take on more of the foraging. But today, the sky has already started to darken, and the ones who went out have still not returned. Time keeps slipping by. Dusk settles in. The world outside grows more dangerous by the minute. For Ardipithecus, night is practically a danger amplifier. Their night vision is nowhere near what predators have. Once visibility drops, no amount of cooperation and vigilance can compensate. The mother cannot process something as complex as worry. But she can feel hunger. She needs food. The infant in her arms needs food even more. Every other Ardipithecus in the cave is in the same position. And finally, in the warm orange glow of the fading evening, several silhouettes come staggering back from the distance. The foragers. 6 of them. Every one of them with an armful of fist-sized fruit pressed to their chest. The mother lights up immediately, calling out to alert the others inside. One after another, Ardipithecus rushes to the cave entrance. Seeing their companions return triggers an instinctive surge of excitement. Food is here. Tonight will be okay. But when the 6 actually walk close and stack the fruit in a corner of the cave, one of the Ardipithecus inside quickly realizes something is wrong. At midday today, well over 10 Ardipithecus left together. Now only half have come back. Some start circling the returning 6, then dash back to the cave entrance and stare out into the dark, as if asking, where are the others? The ones who returned look at each other, their expressions unmistakably filled with dread. They had run into a full 6 saber-tooth cats attacking them today. The predators came too fast and too hard. They scattered the group almost on first contact. Several did not make it. If the saber-tooth cats had not been drawn away by the ones they already caught, the rest would not have had even a chance to pull back. This does not need language to communicate. The raw panic in the air says enough. But there is one advantage to limited intelligence. They do not linger in grief the way humans do. In nature, survival pressure is always the most immediate thing. So hunger quickly takes over again. The Ardipithecus settle into a circle and begin dividing up that heavy pile of fruit. These are large, nut-like pieces, decent flavor, but the shell is extremely hard. Normally they crack them open with their teeth alone. They still carry clear animal instincts, their canines sharp enough to get through the shell, just with a lot of effort. The cave quickly fills with the sound of gnawing and cracking. But the mother holding her infant only has one hand free. She cannot get enough force behind it, and after gnawing away for a while, she still cannot crack it open. She is getting desperate. And right at that moment, she looks down and notices a stone near her foot. Something clicks. She sets the fruit on the ground, picks up the stone, and raises it high above her head. She slams it down hard. A sharp crack. The hard shell splits open on impact. The mother is immediately thrilled, and shoves the fruit into her mouth. The Ardipithecus across from her watches all of this, and its eyes light up instantly. It points at the stone near the mother's foot, then holds up its own fruit, the meaning completely clear. Pass it here for a second. The mother gets it. Out of habit, she casually tosses the stone across. But the problem is, her body is not the same one it was moments ago. Wider shoulder angle, longer collarbone, the entire throwing structure rebuilt by my intervention. The mother has absolutely no awareness of the change, and throws at roughly 80% of her usual effort out of pure muscle memory. The next instant, the stone flies at a speed far beyond anything she has ever thrown and lands square in the face of the Ardipithecus across from her. The impact sends it stumbling backward. It rolls around clutching its head, howling in pain. Every other Ardipithecus in the cave is stunned. The mother freezes too, clearly not understanding herself how a small stone like that hit with that kind of force. And the one that got struck, after nursing the pain for a good while, actually picks up on something different in that impact. It grabs the stone that hit it and turns it over and over in its hands, completely baffled. How can a single stone produce an impact this intense? Cannot figure it out through thinking, so just try it instead. And so, it grips the stone, spins around, and hurls it at a particularly large Ardipithecus nearby. A heavy thud. The one it hits is just as unprepared and cries out in pain. This is a discovery of a lifetime. The Ardipithecus is instantly electrified, immediately starts grabbing every stone it can find, then hurling them one after another at its companions. One cannot dodge in time, two get hit. The whole cave erupts into total chaos. It gets more and more excited with every throw, practically jumping for joy, until it finally pushes everyone past their limit, gets pinned down by several of them at once, and after a thorough scolding, finally stops. But even after being shut down, it is desperate to get something across. The moment it wriggles free, it immediately points at the stones on the ground and mimes an exaggerated throwing motion, making sounds like whoosh, bang, and various grunts and clicks. Through this enthusiastic combination of gestures and sound effects, the other Ardipithecus gradually start to catch on. It is not about any particular stone. It is the act of throwing a stone with real force that matters. So more Ardipithecus start trying it out. They pick up stones from the ground, some throwing at distant targets, some at the tree trunks. And quickly they discover that once a stone is in the air, the impact it carries is shocking. Hitting a thick tree trunk leaves a visible mark. The biggest and most powerfully built Ardipithecus is particularly extreme, able to launch a stone dozens of meters at full effort, and the whole cave erupts into a shared frenzy. They quickly figure out the finer details too. Stones that are too small do not hit hard enough. Ones that are too large cannot be thrown far. But the ones roughly palm to hand size with a moderate weight hit the hardest and feel the most natural to throw. And so a whole group of Ardipithecus starts frantically collecting these perfectly sized stones, as if they have accidentally stumbled onto the greatest toy imaginable, too excited to stop. By the time the world outside has gone completely dark, they are still making noise inside the cave. And in the silence of night, noise stands out. At the same time, in Iron Nation's live stream, Jude's view is locked onto 3 saber-tooth cats still out searching for food after dark. The recently migrated saber-tooth cats keep piling in. Competition pressure has spiked dramatically, and naturally quite a few are starting to go hungry. These 3 are exactly that case. They cannot compete for enough prey on the open plains or at the forest edge, so they take the risk and push into the mountain forest. And because of that, they quickly pick up on the constant noise coming from the cave. Iron Nation's viewers are briefly confused, then suddenly perk up. Someone has already checked Dragon Nation's livestream to confirm. Sure enough, it is a bunch of apes in there, playing around with rocks and having the time of their lives. As far as Iron Nation is concerned, this is a perfect hunting opportunity. And so, the 3 saber-tooth cats quickly lower their bodies and move through the dark toward the cave without making a sound. Night is already the best cover a predator can ask for. Even creatures this large, as long as they keep their movements controlled, can be invisible enough. And quickly, they reach the area just outside the cave entrance. Dragon Nation's live stream viewers are barely able to watch, because everyone knows that even a single saber-tooth cat used to fill Ardipithecus with overwhelming dread. Now there are 3, and the cave is an enclosed space. If they get trapped inside, the situation for dozens of Ardipithecus will be catastrophic. And sure enough, the lead saber-tooth cat has already stepped into the edge of the entrance. It twitches its nose first, pulls in the air, and quickly confirms that there are plenty of targets inside. It is ready to move. But then, just as it is about to launch its attack, a stone suddenly flies out of the cave, hits the rock wall right beside it with a sharp crack, and rolls to a stop at its feet. The sudden noise jolts the fully focused saber-tooth cat hard, and it lurches back 2 steps, letting out a low growl at the stone. That growl instantly silences every Ardipithecus inside the cave. They know that sound too well. That is a saber-tooth cat, the creature that has dominated their existence for as long as they can remember. In the thin light of the moon, the Ardipithecus inside finally make out the massive shape filling the entrance. The dense, heavy frame, the size that radiates threat, the crushing presence that seems to take up the entire cave opening. And it gets worse, because 2 more shadows quickly appear on either side of the entrance, sealing every way out. 3 saber-tooth cats standing there like 3 walls, with dozens of Ardipithecus pressed against the very back of the cave, backs to the rock, nowhere left to go. The lead cat confirms the stone is not moving on its own, and refocuses on the group huddled in the dark. It sinks slightly lower, and this time, it is not staying hidden. It is loading for a faster charge. The 2 beside it are doing the same. As far as they are concerned, this group of apes is nothing. What comes next is pure dominance. All 3 beasts launch at once, charging straight into the Ardipithecus. And right at this moment, the one pressed up against the very front row does something that stands apart from everyone else. It is the very same one that was the first to discover what a stone could do. It is shaking just as hard as the rest, heart slamming against its ribs like it wants out. It wants to push behind its companions too, but there is no room. It has no choice but to stay right where it is, exposed at the very front. It watches with its own eyes as 3 saber-tooth cats drop into a crouch and watches them accelerate straight toward it. Any other time, a sight like this would have already stripped it of any will to fight back. Every instinct running through its blood, every reflex in its body is screaming, "Run, run now!" But its hand is still locked around a fist-sized stone. And in this moment, it cannot say what it is actually thinking. Maybe the fear has just pushed past its peak. Maybe survival instinct is forcing it to act. Whatever the reason, it suddenly opens its mouth wide and lets out a high, sharp roar, like it is trying to courage itself into motion, or like it is making some kind of declaration from the edge of no return. And that single sound seems to pull it out of its own trembling. It snaps upright, torso twisting as far as it can go, arm pulling back to its maximum reach. This is the same motion it spent the day figuring out, and now it activates through pure instinct, flawlessly. The entire body is one taut bow pulled to its limit, and the stone in its hand becomes the arrow leaving the string. The next second, it hurls the stone with everything it has. Whoosh! The stone cuts through the air at terrifying speed, tearing apart the silence. The lead saber-tooth cat is less than 10 meters away now. At that range, it has no time to react, does not even register what is coming. Bam! The stone drives into its face with enormous force. The saber-tooth cat that was moving fastest takes a violent hit right then and there, the sheer impact warping its momentum, its entire body losing balance, crashing hard onto the ground, briefly stunned. What just happened? The two behind it both slammed to a stop, watching with their own eyes as their companion, without ever touching its target, got knocked sideways by something invisible and went down hard. It fills them with deep unease. For a moment they cannot even bring themselves to push forward again. They circle around the one on the ground, unsettled and confused, trying to make sense of what just happened. And the one on the ground is completely disoriented. A fist-sized stone is not enough to kill it, but the force of impact is enough to completely break its attack rhythm. It manages to roll over, tries to push itself up, but staggers, and can only lie there letting out a low, warning growl. On the Ardipithecus side, the one that threw is breathing hard, but watching the creature that has always stood above them just crumple in front of it, something hits. A realization that never existed before. It can actually stop these giants. The beast that always scattered them in every direction can be forced to halt. The understanding is still blurry, not even close to real conscious thought, but it has taken root in this Ardipithecus. Maybe it is not as weak as it always believed. Maybe running is not the only option when danger comes. So it picks up another stone. This time it does not fall back. Instead it turns and roars loudly at the companions behind it, like it is pushing them forward, or sending some kind of signal. And the others do see it. They see the saber-tooth cat on the ground. They see the other two hesitating. The Ardipithecus loads again, and throws. This time the stone lands squarely on the downed cat's body, pulling another pained, retreating groan from it. The other two saber-tooth cats are genuinely frozen now, actually stepping back instinctively. And for the dozens of Ardipithecus watching from inside the cave, this is basically a live demonstration. So throwing a stone with real force can actually make these dangerous creatures back down. As the saber-tooth cats retreat, the panic inside the Ardipithecus starts draining away fast. They look down at the scattered stones on the ground around them. What had been toys just hours ago have suddenly become something to rely on. And so, one after another, the Ardipithecus bend down and pick up stones. Within moments, more than half of them are holding rocks. In the dark, pair after pair of eyes is no longer just filled with panic. They are all locked onto the 3 saber-tooth cats at the entrance. And the saber-tooth cats can feel the shift in energy too. Before, those eyes only held the submission of prey facing something stronger. But this time, for the first time, they sense that what stands in front of them may no longer be a group that can only take what is given to them. From this moment on, the tide has turned. Visibility inside the pitch-black cave is nearly zero, and for saber-tooth cats with full night vision, this should be the perfect hunting ground. The cave is not deep. From the entrance to the back wall is maybe 20 to 30 meters, and the width barely clears 5. 3 massive saber-tooth cats blocking the entrance with dozens of Ardipithecus cowering at the back. Looks like an all-you-can-eat buffet delivered straight to them. By all logic, there should be no suspense here at all. But from the moment one unremarkable stone knocked over the fastest saber-tooth cat, everything changed. Inside Iron Nation's dedicated livestream, viewers who were flooding the chat with trash talk 1 second suddenly go quiet the next, like someone pressed mute on the entire room. The chat cuts off completely, leaving only the sky screen continuing to roll. At the same time, Dragon Nation's livestream absolutely erupts. Not just Iron Nation's audience, even Dragon Nation's own viewers never expected a situation that looked like certain death to flip this completely because of a rock. Throwing stones is about as ordinary as it gets for modern people. Who did not skip rocks, throw pebbles at trees, or toss fruit pits as a kid? So when everyone watched the Ardipithecus in the cave pelting each other with rocks, nobody took it seriously. Who could have imagined that? This childish-looking little habit could actually force 3 prehistoric apex predators to back down on the spot and knock one of them to the ground. Dragon Nation's research division has gone completely silent as well. Just moments ago, everyone thought Dragon Nation was done for this time. Then a stunning reversal, and in an instant the entire room is stunned. Dr. Voss stays silent for a long time, brow locked tight, until finally, right now, it all clicks into place for him. He finally understands what Stellan's solo intervention, the one that refused external support, actually built. He exhales slowly, and finally admits it. We all underestimated this new civilization observer. From Dr. Voss's perspective, the issue was never about the stone itself. The problem was that everyone had been looking at this from a modern human perspective. For someone living today, throwing rocks at lions and tigers is obviously useless, because humans have far safer and more effective tools for lethal force, like firearms, like traps. So the natural assumption is that a stone simply cannot pose any decisive threat to a large predator. But shift the perspective entirely, and look at it from the animal's point of view, and everything changes. From the beginning of Earth Online to right now, whether the colossal creatures of the dinosaur era or the apex mammals of today, every single one of them, to hurt something, has to follow the same set of rules. You have to close in. You have to get right up against your target. Claws, fangs, horns ramming. Every contest is decided at point-blank range. Who is bigger, who is faster, who bites harder, that is who wins. But the moment a group appears in that world that can attack from a distance, the entire rulebook shatters. Claws can be as sharp as they want. Fangs can be as terrifying as they come. If they cannot touch the target, none of it matters. Once Dr. Voss fully works through this, he finally and completely understands why Stellan never needed their input at all. The research team had been focused on one thing: how to patch up Ardipithecus's weaknesses within the existing rules of the ecosystem. But Stellan took a completely different path. He was not filling in weaknesses. He was rewriting the rules themselves, letting Ardipithecus step outside the biological law of melee combat and pull off a complete shortcut. And because of that, the tide has turned completely inside that cave. Facing dozens of Ardipithecus raising stones all at once, the three saber-tooth cats feel danger on an instinctive level. Their exceptional night vision shows them every detail, those apes lifting their arms, pulling back into position, like a row of strange little catapults. The next second, a dense barrage of stones comes raining down like a storm. In that moment, for all three saber-tooth cats, the whole world collapses. The distance between them is too short, the cave too narrow, and the stones are flying absurdly fast. Almost simultaneously, all three saber-tooth cats are hit across their entire bodies at once. The stones are fast and heavy, every hit sending sharp waves of pain through them, triggering cascading blunt force trauma. Hits landing on the head, face, and vulnerable joints are especially devastating. They thrash and roar, trying to dodge, but the cave is too narrow, the Ardipithecus are throwing in waves, and the stones keep coming with no blind spots at all. This feels worse than being swarmed by a pack of hunting dogs. At least hunting dogs have to get close, but these stones just keep flying in from a distance, giving them no chance to fight back at all. All that strength, speed, and those killing fangs, and they cannot even touch their targets. All they can do is absorb hit after hit. And so, the apex predators are afraid. Not as a figure of speech. Actually genuinely afraid. Their instincts are screaming, "Danger here. Something is wrong with this cave. These apes are not normal. Get out." In nature, if you cannot win, you run. If something feels wrong, you pull back. That is the most natural choice there is. It is just that the saber-tooth cats have not encountered anything like this in a very long time. In their normal life, all they have to do is charge, and prey collapses and runs. The question of whether they might lose has never even crossed their minds. But now the rules do not apply. Two of them that can still stand make the call immediately, spin around and bolt for the exit, using their backs and bulk to absorb as many hits as possible, shielding their heads as they run. But the one that charged fastest at the start, the one that took the first stone directly to the head, is in terrible shape. Already dazed from the initial hit, with its legs taking strike after strike, it cannot get back up at all, and can only curl up where it fell as an even denser rain of stones hammers into it. Thud, 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 thud. Its coat is in complete disarray, wounds across its body in multiple places, the concussive damage to its head leaving it nearly unable to move, vision going dark. It is not until the stones on the ground are nearly all picked up and used that the one-sided assault finally ends. The saber-tooth cat is not dead yet, but it is close. Its massive frame is sprawled on the ground, only broken intermittent whimpers coming from its mouth, too weak to do anything more. At this point, the Ardipithecus that threw the first stone creeps forward cautiously, first watching from a safe distance, then carefully closing in with companions nudging and crowding around it, looking left, looking right, until it confirms that this beast once utterly untouchable can no longer get back up. Only then does it let out a loud call, as if announcing to the others that it is safe. More Ardipithecus close in. The biggest and strongest one even drags over a stone the size of a basketball. Earlier in the day, everyone had written off stones this large as too heavy to throw any real distance, useless. But now it has become the perfect finishing blow. The big one raises the stone high above its head and slams it down with full force. A deep, heavy impact, and that saber-tooth cat takes a devastating final blow and goes completely still. The cave fills immediately, with a burst of short, excited calls. It has always been Ardipithecus getting hunted by the saber-tooth cat. Nobody ever imagined that one day a saber-tooth cat would be lying in front of them, with Ardipithecus gathered around staring down at it. The excitement comes first. Then eyes drift without any choice toward the exposed flesh and blood on the saber-tooth cat's body. That is meat. Many of the Ardipithecus swallow instinctively. At this stage, Ardipithecus still primarily survives on wild fruit, nuts, and roots, occasionally catching insects for protein. They need meat, but they have never had reliable access to large animal meat, and right now, an entire saber-tooth cat is lying right in front of them. This massive body means an enormous amount of food. Shared among the group, every single Ardipithecus could get a meaningful piece. Excitement gradually transforms into craving. The Ardipithecus that threw first gets pushed forward by the others again. They do not yet have a concept of an alpha, but in the life-or-death moment that just happened, it was the first to step up, the first to land a hit on their enemy, the first to prove that predators can fall, and that they bleed too. So the others begin instinctively trusting it, respecting it, willing to let it go first and decide what comes next. And it does not let anyone down. It sits directly beside the carcass, reaches out and grabs the torn flesh, rips a large chunk of raw red meat free, and stuffs it into its mouth. The flavor is hard to describe, tough, strongly gamey, not easy to chew, but to this Ardipithecus it is more appealing than anything it has ever eaten before. Its eyes light up immediately, and it waves the others in to share. Tonight, the predator became the prey. Ardipithecus eats large animal meat for the very first time, and I record this moment carefully in my observation log, because I know this is not simply a new item added to the menu. Going from fruit to meat looks like nothing more than a change in taste, but in reality it is like opening a Pandora's box. Meat means higher density protein, fat, and energy, and those things will continuously feed something far more terrifying, the brain. Iron Nation's viewers watch all of this unfold, and they almost completely lose it. As far as they are concerned, this is a world turned upside down. Apes that used to scatter in a panic the moment a saber-tooth cat made any sound are now tearing into its flesh, eating through the saber-tooth cat's meat. They cannot accept this. The chat fills with outrage. But Dragon Nation's viewers, for the first time, are finally standing tall, pouring into Iron Nation's live stream by the thousands, and hitting back hard. But unlike the raw emotional reaction from the general audience, Iron Nation's research team stays relatively composed. Someone raises the question, since Ardipithecus unlocked throwing through an intervention, could the saber-tooth cat be pushed in the same direction? But that idea gets shut down quickly. The reason is straightforward. The saber-tooth cat's front paws cannot even grip properly. Holding an object steady and loading a throw is completely out of the question. Its entire body structure is on a completely different path from Ardipithecus. Forcing that kind of change could very easily break what already makes it powerful. Not worth it. So in the end, all they can do is reassure themselves that this loss had more to do with the terrible cave conditions, too narrow, too close, too many Ardipithecus, stones coming from everywhere with almost nowhere to dodge. Put it out on open grassland, and the impact of stones is ultimately limited. A moving saber-tooth cat cannot be taken down that easily. And besides, the saber-tooth cat population in this region is still growing, continuing to squeeze Ardipithecus's survival space. One loss does not mean the overall situation has flipped, and the sky screen quickly moves into a new phase. After eating meat for the first time, the way Ardipithecus thinks starts to shift. One entire saber-tooth cat is enough to feed them through the next day, but once that second day passes, hunger comes back just the same. They still have to go back out and find food. And by now, the Ardipithecus that threw the first stone has quietly become the alpha of this group. It seems to carry a rare combination of courage, presence, and decisive action that the others simply do not have. So, the others are far more willing to follow it, to move when it moves. The alpha's presence also begins tightening what was previously just a loose collection of family units. In the past, Ardipithecus would gather out of shared family instinct, but the bonds between one family and the next were actually quite fragile. Conflicts over food and space happened regularly. But now they are slowly beginning to understand that when a real crisis hits, there has to be someone who steps forward and pulls everyone together as one, or none of them survive. And so, the tribe begins to truly form. This time the alpha gathers nearly 20 Ardipithecus together to leave the cave and forage together. They are no longer just a few scattered apes moving in a loose group. This is a genuine small-scale coordinated unit. They move at midday, when the sun hits its harshest, and a large group of Ardipithecus flows out of the cave. Over 20 of them moving together. The sight is already impressive. The sheer number makes surrounding creatures instinctively wary. Even solitary predators that spot this group from a distance stop and watch first, unwilling to close in without knowing more. The members of the group can clearly feel the difference too. They no longer move the way they used to, tiptoeing through every step, terrified something might lunge out and drag one of them away. Now, with over 20 pairs of eyes all watching at once, the sense of safety is significantly higher. On this trip, their destination is a fruit grove outside the mountain forest. They need to cross a short stretch of open grassland to get there, a total distance of roughly 3 kilometers. The grove contains a type of hard fruit they are very fond of, and it is currently in season. Just before leaving, the alpha bends down and picks up a stone of the right size, visibly satisfied with it. then signals the others to grab some too. They have already proven for themselves what stones can do. These keep you alive. The hands can only carry so much, so they cannot take many, but it should be enough to deter any predator that comes at them. But just as they are about to head out, the alpha's gaze catches on a broken branch over a meter long lying near the tree roots. A wooden club about as thick as a wrist, probably snapped off and dropped by some tree-dwelling animal. The alpha stares at it for a long moment, until the companions behind it start pushing with impatience. Only then does it bend down and pick up the branch, weighing it in its hand, then cautiously swings it once. Whoosh! The branch cuts through the air with a clear and satisfying sound. The alpha's eyes light up immediately. Because after my structural modification, Ardipithecus did not just unlock throwing. They also gained a wider shoulder range and stronger lower back rotation. Which means when they swing a club now, the force transfer is far more powerful than before. The whole branch can be whipped with something close to the snap of a lash. Ardipithecus has no idea why. All they know is this thing looks like it hits hard and will probably be very useful. And so, a group of clever little apes immediately starts searching everywhere nearby for fallen branches, and the area is stripped clean in no time. Out of over 20 Ardipithecus, well over half find a branch that feels right, and those who do not still hold stones. And just like that, an unusual group takes shape. A collection of upright walking Ardipithecus, one hand carrying a club, the other gripping a stone, marching out of the cave in full force. In Dragon Nation's livestream, plenty of viewers are already laughing. Someone says they cannot look at this group of Ardipithecus without seeing themselves as a kid picking up sticks at the village gate and swinging them around like a weapon. Others joke that any kid who ever spotted a good-looking stick on the side of the road could not help picking it up and taking a few swings. The jokes keep coming. But more and more of Dragon Nation's viewers are starting to quietly sense that something about this group of Ardipithecus is genuinely different. They are still small. Still nowhere close to a dominant species this patch. But something that feels like the start of something real is slowly beginning to show. Meanwhile, on the other side of things, the ecological shift on the open grasslands is starting to reveal itself. Iron Nation's forced concentration of large numbers of saber-tooth cats has left the region with noticeably fewer large animals, either hunted down or scared away. The entire plain is starting to look more and more like a saber-tooth cat kingdom. Ardipithecus has no concept of any of this, but the moment they step onto the open ground, they almost immediately draw the attention of several saber-tooth cats patrolling nearby. 3 or 4 of them spot this group from different directions at once. But this time, the situation is different from anything before. Over 20 Ardipithecus moving together, the scale is too large. For saber-tooth cats that are used to operating mostly alone, a group of prey this size is something they have never seen before. More importantly, even though Iron Nation used a behavioral intervention to push saber-tooth cats into the same territory, the logic of coordinated group hunting does not form overnight. Deep down, every saber-tooth cat still operates as a solo hunter, at most passively acknowledging that others of its kind might be nearby, but actively cooperating to surround and take down prey together is still beyond them. So, none of these saber-tooth cats charge immediately. Instead, they continue using old hunting instincts, watching from a distance, tailing quietly, waiting for a straggler, someone falling behind, or a gap in formation, then striking. They trail the Ardipithecus, all the way to the fruit grove. Once Ardipithecus enters the grove, the saber-tooth cats still do not move, because the grove environment is complex. Charging in blindly is not guaranteed to produce a catch, and might just give away their position. Iron Nation's research team lead is watching this with gritted teeth, practically wanting to reach through the sky screen and show the cats how to hunt. But instinct is not something you can command. The saber-tooth cats can only operate by their own logic. 2 of them lose patience first, because they spot better prey elsewhere. Sematherium, that deer family animal, is larger than Ardipithecus. 1 is enough for a full meal, and the risk is much lower. So they peel off without hesitation, leaving only the other 2 to keep watch outside the grove. Half an hour later, full and satisfied and still holding armfuls of fruit, the Ardipithecus begin heading back. The uneventful outward journey has inevitably relaxed their guard somewhat, and the group is not as tight as it was on the way out. The 2 saber-tooth cats that have been waiting this whole time have been waiting exactly for this. One of them is already starving, too hungry to hold back any longer, and launches first. The other actually has more patience, but the moment its companion moves, its own position is revealed, and it has no choice but to charge in too. The open grassland suddenly erupts with the sound of sprinting. The crushing presence of apex predators fills the air instantly. The first saber-tooth cat moves with terrifying speed, lunging once and sending an Ardipithecus crashing to the ground, claws coming down and delivering a fatal wound. The scream that follows sends Iron Nation's live stream into cheers, while Dragon Nation's viewers feel their hearts jump straight into their throats. But before Iron Nation can enjoy it for long, a stone flies in, hitting the saber-tooth cat square and solid. The cat is immediately confused. Nothing within 2 meters of it, which under normal circumstances means any creature closing into that range gets detected and countered immediately. It already has its prey pinned under its paw, theoretically in a position of complete safety, but somehow the attack came anyway. Its simple brain cannot process this. Then more stones come flying in, the hunt forced to a halt. It spins left and right in a panic, feeling only pain, unable to locate where any of it is coming from. The feeling is like invisible enemies hiding on all sides, and if it stays any longer, it might be the one in danger. So, it makes the decisive call to abandon the prey at its feet and run. The rest of the group rushes in immediately, pulling the injured companion back toward the center of the group. Iron Nation's research lead watches this and is nearly falling apart. It was so close, just finish it and drag it away, why let it go? But this is precisely what exposes the fundamental difference between them and the saber-tooth cat. Humans optimize for maximum gain. Wild animals always choose to preserve their own life first. The moment an incomprehensible ranged threat appears, instinct forces it to prioritize retreat. Of course, this also reveals something important. In open ground, relying on stones alone, Ardipithecus genuinely cannot deal lethal damage to a saber-toothed cat that is still mobile. As long as a vital spot is not hit immediately, the cat will likely escape. But the thing is, escaping is itself a win for Ardipithecus. And the second saber-toothed cat has locked onto the alpha, with its companion having broken cover first. This attack has lost the benefit of full surprise. The alpha detects the danger immediately and hurls the only stone it is carrying. This saber-toothed cat is either lucky or genuinely fast enough, leaping sideways in a single explosive step, barely avoiding a direct hit to the face. But because of that dodge, its attack rhythm is completely broken. Its motion stutters visibly. That brief pause is all it takes. The alpha locks both hands around the 1-meter club and swings in a full horizontal arc. A deep, solid thud. And that saber-toothed cat is immediately stunned, completely unable to understand how this ape suddenly has an arm that is this long, this rigid, and moves this fast when swung. The impact feels like being hit by a large creature charging at full speed, the pain arriving out of nowhere. And what unsettles it even more is that the alpha has not been scared back. Instead, it is roaring and advancing, swinging the club in continuous arcs that cut the air with a constant whoosh, practically leaving afterimages, and combined with the alpha's own arm reach, this creates a danger zone that the saber-toothed cat simply cannot force its way through from any angle. The cat steps back, the alpha steps forward. It steps back again, the alpha keeps pressing, until the other Ardipithecus start closing in from behind with their own stones and clubs. This saber-toothed cat finally gives up completely and turns to retreat. The side of its face where it took the hit is still burning, but no matter how it tries, it cannot figure out how it got caught like that. All it remembers is that whatever that thing was, it moved way too fast.